Okay, this is our third group of poems, and I'm going to introduce you to two poets. Lewis Carroll, who was more thought of as an author. He wrote two famous books, Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. But in that book, he uses a lot of poems to carry on the story. You guys have been reading The Hobbit, and you know that J.R.R. Tolkien does the same thing. Bilbo often quotes a poem or writes a song, and they do that back and forth. So these are three poems from the book Alice in Wonderland. And some of these I have almost still memorized. I remember a lot of them without even looking. This one does not have any pictures, though there are some ink and pen drawings out there in some books. This is called You're Old, Father William. And it's a son and his dad talking. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white. And yet you incessantly stand on your head. At your age, do you think it is right? In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure my brain. But now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why do it again and again? You are old, said the youth, as I've mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turn a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason for that? In my youth, said the sage as he shook his gray locks, I kept all my limbs very supple. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. Allow me to sell you a couple. You are old, said the youth, and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finish the goose with the bone and the beak. Pray, how do you manage to do it? In the youth, said his father, I took to the law, and I argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life. You are old, said the youth. One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever? I've answered 3 questions, and that is enough, said his father. Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to this stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs. You're old, Father William. This one's called the Jabberwocky. And the Jabberwocky would be akin to like a dragon. And this one was actually set to music, and Grandma sang it when she was in high school one year. And I still kind of remember that tune in my head when I read the poem Jabberwocky. 'Twas brillig, and the slivy tove did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the barrow groves, and the mome rafts out grabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, with jaws that bite and claws that catch. Beware the juju bird and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes aflame, came liftly through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumping back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O fubulous jay! Callooh-callay! He chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slivy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the barrow groves, and the mome rafts out grabe. The Jabberwocky. Did you understand every word I read? Because Lewis Carroll made up words. You're not supposed to know what all those things are. You're supposed to think, I wonder what a barrow grave is. And I wonder what the mome rafts are. And you're supposed to think about those things and wonder and put pictures in your own brain to think about what it might be. There was a little picture of the boy going after the Jabberwock. Poem number 3 by Lewis Carroll. The Walrus and the Carpenter. I think you guys know what a walrus is. And a carpenter is somebody who builds things out of wood. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business being there after the day was done. Very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be. The sand was dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantity of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept for half a year, do you suppose, the walrus said, they could get it clear? I doubt it, said the carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. Oh, oysters, come and walk with us, the walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk along the briny beach. We cannot do more with 4 to give a hand to each. The oldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat. And this is odd because, they hadn't any feet. 4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4, and thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. The walrus and the carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes, and ships, and sealing wax, and cabbages, and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. Oh, but wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and all of us are fat. Oh, no hurry, said the carpenter. They thanked him much for that. A loaf of bread, the walrus said, is what we chiefly need. Pepper and vinegar besides are very good indeed. Now, if you're ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. Oh, the night is fine, the walrus said. Do you admire the view? It was so kind of you to come. You are very nice. The carpenter said nothing but, cut us another slice. I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice. It seems a shame, the walrus said, to play them such a trick after we've brought them out so far and made them trot so quick. The carpenter said nothing, but the butter spread too thick. I weep for you, the ostrich said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief before his streaming eyes. Oh, oysters, said the carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer came there none, and this was scarcely odd because they'd eaten everyone. Walrus and the carpenter. The line that says, oh, we should talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax and cabbages and kings, and whether the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings, that gets quoted often by other people. It's kind of a really silly line that's fun to have memorized. I'm also going to read you a few poems by Langston Hughes. This is called The Dream Keeper. The Dream Keeper. And Brian Pickney did some very nice pen and ink drawings. That's also the picture that's on the front here. The Dream Keeper by Langston Hughes. Bring me all of your dreams, your dreamers. Bring me all of your heart melodies, that I may wrap them in a blue cloud cloth, away from too rough fingers of the world. This one's called Feet of Jesus. At the feet of Jesus, sorrow like a sea, Lord, let your mercy come drifting down on me. At the feet of Jesus, at your feet I stand. Oh, my precious Jesus, please reach out your hand. One more picked out. And the page got unfolded. Sorry about that. This is called My Lord. My Lord ain't no stuck-up man. My Lord, he ain't proud. When he goes a-walkin', he gives me his hand. Yeah, my friend, he lowed. My Lord knowed what it was to work. He knowed how to pray. My Lord's life was troubled, too. Trouble every day. My Lord ain't no stuck-up man. He's a friend of mine. When he went to heaven, his soul on fire, he told me I was going. He said, sure you'll come with me and be my friend through eternity. Langston.